Good morning, everybody. So we're going to take a few minutes. We're almost ready to start. I just wanted to go through a couple of things with you guys. There's a lot of materials that coordinate with today's event. You will find the legal complaints that go with all of these sites on our website. There's also that graphic if you need that. There are photos of each of the sites available on our Flickr account. You'll find that link on our website as well, as long as the press release, a fact sheet that gives you a brief summary of each action at each site, and an environmental enforcement handbook that we're making available to local law enforcement. And that's a pretty hefty document in there too. So all of that should be up on our website, hopefully right now. If you have trouble with any of that, let me know. Lee Moore is back in the office. If you guys have questions after today's event, he'll be able to funnel those, as well as DEP. Speaking today are going to be the Newark Mayor, Baraka, Commissioner McCabe, Catherine with a C, from the Department of Environmental Protection, and Attorney General Gurbir Grewal. Again, I think we just need a couple minutes. Anybody have any questions, anything before we get started? Yay! Great! All right, you have a nice day.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Excuse you, Mayor. You're going to go first.
Yes, ma'am.
Any executive over here?
All right.
Commissioner.
Good morning. Just want to welcome everyone to the city of Newark. Myself, the county executive, State's Attorney General Grewal, Commissioner McCabe. I want to thank them, first of all, for the enforcement that they're doing here in the city of Newark and around the county to make sure that the people have access to a clean environment, opportunity for good health, that they are actually enforcing policies and laws that were put on books to make sure that people had access to quality health care, or quality health, I should say. And, it's not all the time that we get to come together and see that there's enforcement taking place. I get a lot of calls, a lot of complaints, and a lot of times there's a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy in getting these people to adhere to the rules and the policies. But today, the State's Attorney General, Commissioner McCabe, has gotten together and making sure they're holding accountable these bad actors who have made our environment not so good. So I'm glad to be here this morning to support them in any way that we possibly can. So that being said, I'd like to bring on a county executive.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Newark, Essex County. I just want to say to the General, to the Commissioner McCabe, thank them. The last 22 months they've been working very, very hard to making sure the right thing's done as far as quality of life and improving our environment, not only here in Essex County, but also throughout the state. And this is very important. They're going to stay on these bad actors, like the mayor said, to making sure that they clean up and they do what's supposed to be done. Whatever money they owe or whatever cleanup's going to be doing, they're going to stay on top of it to make sure it gets done. So to the Attorney General, thank you for what you're doing, and thank your team, and especially you too, Commissioner McCabe. Welcome back.
Thank you. I want to thank the county executive, and I want to thank the mayor for welcoming us to Newark today, and for being great partners when we work to improve the public safety of our communities, the health of our communities, and our environment. They've been tireless partners in all of our efforts, and I want to thank them for hosting us this morning. I'm joined by Commissioner McCabe from the DEP, and I also want to thank the elected officials, Senator Ruiz and Assemblywoman Pinter-Marin, who are here this morning for supporting our efforts as well. We're here to announce that today my office filed 6 environmental lawsuits across the state as part of our ongoing environmental justice initiative. These cases go after companies that have put the health and safety of some of our most vulnerable residents at risk. Today's 6 environmental justice actions are wide-ranging. They include multiple kinds of environmental misconduct, from factories that repeatedly discharge hazardous substances into the ground, to companies that leaked oil into our groundwater, to individuals that allowed 10,000 cubic yards of waste to pile up on a single property. And they seek to protect residents all across our state, in the north, central, and southern parts of Jersey, in towns big and small from Newark, Trenton, Camden to East Orange and Kearney. But what unites all of these lawsuits is that they represent the latest step by this state in advancing environmental justice. Environmental justice is a simple idea that everyone, no matter their race, their origin, their socioeconomic background, deserves to live in and to work in a healthy and clean environment. That everyone deserves a seat at the table when we set our environmental policies in this state. Because too often the same communities suffer the worst environmental problems, and they don't get the attention that they deserve or the support that they need. Now, while this sounds simple, environmental justice is critically important. You see, when the same communities are exposed to the worst pollution over and over again, they end up facing greater health risk. And that's fundamentally unfair. No one's health or well-being should suffer simply because of their race, their origin, or their socioeconomic background. This seems obvious, but this country, as well as this state, has not lived up to that promise. In fact, the DEP's own Environmental Justice Advisory Council found that minority and lower income communities in New Jersey face unhealthy and unusually high levels of pollution. And that's unacceptable to me and to everyone up here. So by filing these 6 lawsuits, we build on 8 similar lawsuits that we brought last December when we kicked off our environmental justice program. And we take another major step forward in this state to protect and to improve the health and well-being of all of our residents. Now let me tell you about one of these actions. Here in Newark, less than 2 miles from where we stand, is the former site of the Nains Metal Finishing Company, a metal finishing and production company that operated from 1966 to 1994. And although that company worked with steel and aluminum and other metals, as part of its business, it also worked with hazardous substances. And years after Nains shut down its metal finishing operations, DEP discovered that a number of the chemicals that the company used had been discharged into the soil, into the groundwater under the site, and even within the air in that building. These chemicals included TCE and PCE, and the discovery revealed a public health concern because we know that exposure to these chemicals has been linked to breathing problems, to kidney dysfunction, and even with neurological damage. Now, while the company did some cleanup work to address these issues, they never completed the remediation, despite repeated orders issued over the past 2 decades demanding the company to do so. But thankfully, DEP stepped in to address the most serious public health concerns, and using over $500,000 in taxpayer money, we installed vapor intrusion systems that prevented those toxins from getting into the building's air, to protect the workers in that factory, to render it safe for its current occupants. But because there are still hazardous substances in the groundwater and in the ground at that site, we decided that enough was enough. So we're suing Nains Metal Finishing and subsequent owners of that site, seeking an order that requires them to investigate the extent of the cleanup, to finish the remediation, and to pay back the $500,000 in taxpayer funds that were used to clean up the site. We have 5 other cases today as well. We're suing individuals who left about 10,000 cubic yards of waste on their property, including scrap metals and construction debris, in a residential neighborhood in Camden. We're suing a company in Kearney and another in East Orange for failing to follow state laws and rules that govern the storage of oil, and one that even repeatedly released oil and other fluids into the ground. And we're suing operators of 2 former dry cleaning facilities in Trenton for their own releases of PCE. At one of those sites, the former St. Marie Dry Cleaners in a residential part of Trenton, we discovered that just last year the chemical had actually migrated off the site and impacted 5 nearby homes, exposing families to that dangerous chemical. So once again, as part of our investigation, the DEP stepped in and took on the task of paying for systems to keep that danger out of those families' homes. So once again, with that company, we're demanding that they remediate that site, finish the cleanup, and repay the funds that we expended. These actions today are just the latest example of a campaign that we've waged over the last 2 years, and that we'll continue to wage to stand up for New Jersey's environment and for all of our residents. We want to send a clear message to all our residents that no matter where you live, no matter your background, you deserve to enjoy clean air, and you deserve to enjoy clean water, and you deserve to live in a healthy environment. So I want to send a clearer message to those polluters in this state who've harmed our resources and our environmental justice communities, that we're going to pursue you, that we're going to hold you accountable, just like we're holding these 6 companies accountable this morning, and just like we've done with dozens of other companies over the past 2 years. Now it's my pleasure to turn the podium over to our partner in these efforts, the Commissioner of the DEP, Commissioner McCabe. Commissioner?
Thank you all for coming out today, and I want to thank Attorney General Gurbir Grewal and his team for continuing to make New Jersey's natural resources and environmental justice a top priority for this administration. Environmental justice is a critical component of making New Jersey stronger and fairer for all its residents. The Attorney General and I are dedicated to the principle that our communities deserve to have the environment they live in protected, and to enable them to live healthy and productive lives. That's why we are so pleased today to be standing up on behalf of residents of Newark, Camden, Trenton, Kearny, and East Orange. For too long, as the Attorney General was saying, when businesses in these communities became aware of their responsibility to protect or clean up the environment around them, they packed up and they abandoned their responsibilities and their properties. And that's what happened in many of the complaints filed today. But while the business owners had the opportunity to walk away, their neighbors did not, leaving them with long-standing environmental hazards. So today, the DEP and the Attorney General are standing up for families who are left with little recourse to clean up behind the responsible parties. It is too often the case that communities of color and low-income communities are exposed to a disproportionate amount of environmental pollution and hazards. And often, those hazards are the result of individuals and businesses who profited by ignoring their environmental responsibilities. So today's announcement is one of many steps that the DEP is taking to promote environmental justice, many of them with the Attorney General's office. We have filed enforcement actions against polluters here in the ironbound section here in Newark, as well as others in other counties like Sussex and Ocean and Camden. We've filed before today 8 environmental justice lawsuits statewide and 10 natural resource damage cases, including against companies who manufactured and distributed PFAS chemicals in our state. In addition, we are standing up to federal rollbacks in environmental protection that seem to happen every day and that threaten our clean air, our clean water, and our communities in the state of New Jersey. We are not only taking action, we are also listening. Our actions on environmental justice are informed by our dialogue with New Jersey's environmental justice communities. Listening to communities and addressing their concerns and needs is an important component of environmental justice. I think of the example of Darling Ingredients, which Mayor Baraka called to our attention just a few weeks back, and the Attorney General was very quick to partner with us and to take action against that company for continuing violations of the law. DEP had cited them with orders for a long time, but they ignored us. With Attorney General Grewal, we are making sure that the message is heard and that companies cannot continue to ignore the requirements that they protect the communities around them. Late last year, the Attorney General and DEP also hosted a listening session in Camden to discuss their environmental and public health challenges. We've also reactivated last year the Environmental Justice Advisory Council at DEP. And we're holding listening sessions in various communities to solicit public input on what other issues of environmental justice we should be paying attention to. So we want to keep listening, and next week we will be hosting an environmental justice listening session in Trenton that we hope that people will come out to and let us know what their concerns are. It's that kind of listening that increases our ability to make a difference for people and meet communities' needs with the resources of New Jersey's state government. It takes listening, it takes teamwork, and it takes action. Those are the 3 key ingredients needed to make environmental justice a reality in our state, not just a talking point. And while we would be the first to admit we have a long way to go in accomplishing our goals for environmental justice, this administration is committed to environmental justice and to making our state stronger and fairer, neighborhood by neighborhood. So once again, Attorney General Grewal, Mayor Baraka, County Executive DiVincenzo, and I am honored to join all of you here and to have you as our partners. Thank you for coming out today.
So before we take your questions on today's enforcement actions, as the commissioners stated, this is only possible because of great partnerships and great collaborations. They start with the county executive, the mayor, the environmental stakeholders who are here this morning. I know the League of Conservation Voters are present, New Jersey Conservation Foundation, Clean Water Action, the Sierra Club has representatives here this morning. I want to thank them for helping us in our efforts, to helping us in our environmental justice endeavors, in our natural resource damage cases. And I also want to thank all of the folks at the Attorney General's office that played a role in this as well. Michelle Miller, our Director of the Division of Law, Jason Rockwell, Deputy Director, Aaron Kleinbaum, Assistant Attorney General, Gary Wolf, Section Chief, Darren Epley, Assistant Section Chief, Paul Stofa, Assistant Section Chief, and DHG Mark Fisher, Aaron Hodge, Bob Kinney, Robert Lamilla, Will Roselle, Sam Simon, and Kevin Terhune. Truly a team effort in the actions that we announced today and every day in our environmental enforcement and environmental justice section to stand up for all of our communities to ensure that everyone has a safe and healthy environment here in the state. So with that, we'll take your questions on topic first. So a lot of analysis goes into it, but with these particular actions, not only do we look at the ability to pay, which is a precursor to our filing many of our actions, and especially seeking cost recovery, but it's also focusing on those communities that have been neglected for far too long. And so we're looking at Abbott districts, we're looking at poverty rates, we're looking at other indicators, because we want to make a commitment, as I mentioned, as the county exec and everyone up here has mentioned, we want to make a commitment to all of our communities that regardless of their socioeconomic background, their race, ethnic origin, whatever, everyone deserves a clean environment. And that's how we focus these efforts. And that's how we'll continue to focus our environmental justice actions. That's what that's about. Yes, ma'am. So as we allege, for example, at the Newark site, we put in the vapor intrusion system, so there is no present risk to anyone. PCE and TCE are highly dangerous. If left unmitigated, they can have adverse health consequences. So the DEP, through their actions, have mitigated those risks. But we still want to get those chemicals out of the ground because we want to restore that property in Newark to where it was before these bad actors took advantage of those residents in that property. And so we want them to go, see the full extent of the pollution, remove those chemicals, and then pay us for the vapor intrusion systems. Pardon? So we started the process by filing the actions in court this morning. The court action will play out. We'll sit down with parties as we have been sitting down. It's not that we just woke up today and said, you know, we don't want to give these folks a chance to fix the problems they created. They weren't acting quick enough. And so we prompted their action by bringing them to court and to hold them accountable fully. And so the court action will play out. However long that takes, we'll stay on top of it. Again, to ensure that those residents in Newark, Kearney, Trenton, and Camden have a clean environment. Again, and I'll defer to the commissioner on the extent of the risk there. We put in those mitigation systems. So the same way we address the issue here in Newark with the Naines metal finishing plant, we've addressed it there near the dry cleaners, and we're seeking for them to pay us back for our efforts and to clean what's been left in the ground.
Okay. Each individual site has to be analyzed on its own specific facts, so it varies. But generally speaking, once groundwater is contaminated, it can take decades to clean it up. And that's why we put in place the protection of the soil, the vapor extraction systems to make sure that it does not, in the meantime, these chemicals don't make their way into the air in the homes that are nearby so that people don't breathe it. And the sites also in Camden, I would also point out that we're bringing actions on today. have to do with the solid waste that has been left and dumped and brought in even after businesses close to these many locations in Camden, which affects the community on a daily basis. It takes away from their enjoyment of their community life, and their children are, these are sites where their children will go and play on these not so empty lots and be exposed to pollutants that way. So we want to take action as well to help things that are cleaned up on the surface, that even if they're not hazardous waste, they're solid waste that interferes with the community's quality of life. Yeah, I'm not sure I heard your question quite right, but is the department looking to revise how we enforce? Absolutely. It appears to me that from the records of the years of the Christie administration that DEP took many actions to issue orders, but they were frequently just ignored. Well, we need a partner, and we have that partner in Attorney General Grewal. We always need to be clear that if our orders are ignored, we will take that next step and bring judicial enforcement action, which brings the parties to the table so that we can get relief for the people and for the communities if they are ignoring DEP orders.
Any other questions? Any off topic? Right there. Sure. So one of the divisions within the Attorney General's office is the Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control. On Monday, they issued a notice of charges to the Trump facility in Colts Neck for seeking the revocation of that liquor license in light of certain egregious violations that have been outlined in those notice of charges. That's the only license that's affected by that action. Under state law, when you seek revocation of a particular liquor license, sometimes it could have a ripple effect with other licenses held by that entity, but I'm not going to speculate, as to what effect this action might have on other potential licenses held by that company.
How many actions like this have you taken against other facilities in New Jersey?
So this is just the action that was taken by ABC on Monday is what ABC does. They ensure public safety. They ensure that our license holders comply and abide by the rules. And so this is a routine enforcement action, a part of their charge. And so it's not out of the ordinary, and it's what their mission is.
Do you have a number, how many this year?
I don't have a number, but that's something that we can get you. But revocation is a remedy that the ABC routinely seeks with license holders that violate the law and the rules governing liquor licenses.
You said sometimes there can be revocation action taken against other liquor licenses held by the state. Clarify a little bit about sometimes.
It depends on the ownership structure, and if that licensee holds other liquor licenses in the state and their license is revoked, then there's a revocation of that other license as well. That's possible. It is. I think the statute says it's automatic for the other license. If you hold one license that's revoked, it affects your other liquor license as well. So it's not a may. I think it affects. That's correct.
One more question.
Is there any update on, have you heard, has the department, the agency heard back from the golf course yet? Response?
I'd refer you to the ABC. And let me just, to the earlier point, if the suggestion is this is motivated by some other factor other than public safety and what the ABC does, these are career professionals who uphold our liquor laws, who enforce those liquor laws, doing their jobs and have been doing their jobs day in and day out. I trust their judgment on this case and on all cases that they're doing this without fear or favor as they handle every other case that comes through that office.
All right, if anybody else has questions, you can follow up with us in the office later today. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks.
All right, good job.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay.